Right, I've got 6 o'clock. I'm going to wait and, oh, there's Marty again. So I am going to call this meeting to order now that I see everybody is here. So if we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the
of the
United States of America
America
and to the republic for
for
which it stands, one
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with
with
liberty and justice for
for
all.
all. All right, thank you all for joining us tonight for this meeting on February 8th. The next thing we need to do is the adoption of the agenda. Have all of the board members had a chance to take a look at the agenda this evening?
Yes.
There are no changes or corrections or additions. So if there are any questions, please ask them. If not, we can make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those, oh, thank you. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the agenda has passed. And then first up for item number 3 there, we are going to begin with the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you, Board President Davidson, other board directors in the greater community. I'm going to keep it very short because I have a long presentation coming up this evening that's quite extensive. I really just one thing tonight. I just really want to say thank you so much to the parents and guardians. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for what they've done and how they've supported their student this last school year, really helping to follow the health and safety mandates. Not an easy task, getting their student ready for school. Many folks have had to get their student to school, drive them here, adjust their schedules, fill out the survey for our strategic plan, and just really being thoughtful in their partnership with our school staff. You know, being a parent is not easy. And I just really want to just really extend my thank you to all those parents and guardians out there for all they're doing. They're allowing their student to get a high quality education here and allow us to also propel and have a successful future for their student and ultimately for our greater community. So thank you so much for what you do. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Board President Davidson.
Thank you very much for that. Next up, we do have time for our first chance at community comments. And I'm going to read the statement that we always read at this point in time. As part of the regular school board meeting, the board invites community members to make public comments in person and/or by phone as conditions allow by calling 1-253-215-8782 and entering meeting ID number 854-3386-9913. Our public comment procedure allows each person 3 minutes to speak, and comments will be heard during the community comment period as listed on the agenda. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items not on the agenda, but may direct the superintendent to follow up on issues that arise during the public comment. Please be mindful of how you present your testimony, as the board will not allow complaints against an individual staff member or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. Please follow the public comment procedure by stating your name when recognized by the board chair. So at this time, if we can see if there are any public comments from anyone calling in or anyone that is here that would like to raise their hand and make a public comment. And if Again, I believe it's *6 to take yourself off mute. I'll give
*6
it-
takes you off mute, and *9 raises your hand. If you've called.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott, for that reminder. I will just give it 1 minute more, and then we will move on. All right, there is another opportunity for community comments towards the end of the meeting if someone would like to do that at that time. So we'll move on to section 5, reports and recognition. First up, we always begin with 5.01, which is our student board representative reports. And I believe that I did see Richard Beckman on the line, and we've got Audra too. Perfect. Thank you, Richard. I will start with you, and I will also wish you a happy belated birthday. I think you celebrated that this last week, possibly. So if you would like to start, we would love to hear a report from you.
First of all, thank you. Yeah, my birthday was in this last week, and good evening to all of you. So at Shelton High School, there have been some things going on campus recently. So a majority of the sports and the clubs and stuff like that, they've been doing their senior nights. So that's been really cool. We also recently had a Spirit Week on campus, and that was fun. Recently the midterm had just passed, so there were some midterm quizzes, and that happened. And at the end of this month, there will also be the sports season's coming to an end. There's going to be a new one starting, and also in the announcements each morning to commemorate Black History Month, there have been tidbits of a history and famous people and how they worked for Black rights and stuff. And so there have been little bits of information each morning in the announcements, and I just think that's been pretty cool. And yeah, that's all from Shelton.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your report. And I saw Audra on here. Audra, are you available to give us a report from Choice?
Yes, I am. I was absent a little bit for like last week, so I have kind of a very little bit of a report, but I definitely have.
We would love to hear it.
So we've been working on our senior exit presentations and our senior exit essays. Well, we've started actually first with our senior exit presentation, excuse me. We will be shortly going on to our exit essays. And we've also been celebrating Black History Month, and we're getting ready actually to do a big assembly. And then just basically checking in with students. I know that all of our seniors right now in advisory, we did this color sheet on our credits, making sure that we were up to date on our credits, making sure how far along we were and what we needed in certain areas, planning out the rest of the year, what credits and classes we needed and everything. So that's going really good. And I think that's about it so far as this week and last week.
Well, thank you so much for your report. That's great. And it reminds me that we are getting close to probably being halfway through the year with all these things that seniors are trying to plan for the end. Do any board members have any questions or comments for either Audra or Richard? I am not seeing any at this time. We really appreciate. Oh, go right ahead, Richard.
I was just thinking, I forgot to mention, we're starting the class selection process for next year. So we're starting it a lot earlier. So there's a lot less trying to fit people into classes where they don't want, and trying to cram everybody at the last minute. So we're starting it now, and everybody's selecting their classes in advisory. So I just thought I'd give an update on that.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much for letting us know about that too. And along with your reports, I think all of us on the board have been very appreciative to the principals for sending out their newsletters that they send to families at the beginning of the week. It does help us, both the student reports and the principals, just to hear what's going on in each school. So thank you all very much for that. And thank you, Audra and Richard, for attending and for giving us a report from your schools. So we will move on to 5.02, which is the recognition of the school counselors in honor of February 7th through 11th being National School Counseling Week. And Superintendent Jesse and Mary Ann will be presenting.
Great. Thank you, Board President Davidson. This is absolutely, like you said, this is School Counselor Week. And we want to recognize our counselors here in the Shelton School District. I've had a chance to meet most of the counselors, and they are outstanding. Had a chance to work with them on a number of issues and sometimes through their school administrators. But we are very fortunate to have a really strong counseling crew here in this district. Not always easy to find. We are relying on them more than ever, especially during this pandemic. They have a lot of new things coming up and having to adopt the ASCA model in their practices. So, there's updating in their own credentials and the work that they're doing. And, coming up here with part of my presentation, the strategic plan, one of the 4 priorities is safe and welcoming environments, and counselors are really central to that. So just really excited just to say, hey, thank you so much for your doing. The students and the families and the staff really appreciate all that you do. So I'll hand it over to Mary Ann. I know she has a little bit more.
I'd just like to say thank you to all of our counselors here in the district. I've had the honor of working with them for several years now on committees and both individually with each of them. These are hardworking, just like the rest of our staff. They're out there, they're meeting with students. You see them on the playground, you see them out and about. They're a strong team. They come together, they put together their ASCA plan for the Shelton School District. They meet regularly. This is a really tight team. And one thing I really appreciate about all of them is I can pick up the phone and call any one of them, and they're always ready to support students. They're always willing to lean in. And I just really appreciate that. And I can't thank them enough for their hard work through these last 2 years and even before that. They are greatly appreciated here in the Shelton School District.
Well, thank you both very much. And having 2 kids in the Shelton School District, I have seen just how wonderful many of the counselors have been. I haven't had a chance to meet all of them, but definitely, especially during these critical times, just even my own personal experience, just knowing how, what a critical connection they are between students and their families as well too. So I very much appreciate all of the counselors and the work that they are doing here in the Shelton School District. Do any board members or have any comments they would like to make for this special recognition that they get during this week? Matt.
Yeah, I would like to just really express my gratitude. This is a group that is grossly overworked and greatly underthanked. They're kind of the first responders of the school as I've seen it. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm having an awesome day, I'm going to go see the counselor. So they're always putting out fires, and they do it in my experience with grace and integrity, and kids always come away, well, not always, generally come away better than they went in with. I can't say thank you enough. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Director Wielander. Are there any other comments or any questions at this time? I don't see any, so we are going.
Sorry, I thought Marty was going to pop in there. I'll pop in.
Go ahead.
You were going to pop in there.
All on screen, so it's tough.
It is. And I also want to, add on to what both Carrie and Matt have said. Counselors are highly valued in our district, or should be highly valued. Their services are very valuable. And even since the start of the school year, I've talked to several parents that have had good things to say about various counselors. And even again, last night, I had a parent that was very complimentary of the counselor for their child. So thank you to all of our counselors. Now now Marty can have.
Marty, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I echo the sentiments of my fellow board directors. And one of the things I would ask us, I don't know who they are. So if there's some kind of methodology, maybe a little flyer with a picture and what school they're assigned to and a little bit of a bio for us, for my edification, that way, like Sandy says, when I get a call from a parent, instead of, sending them on a wild goose chase, says, has your student talked to so and so. So if that's available, that'd be very helpful for the new guy.
Yes, Marty, and you can always direct them to the principal, who of course would know the counselors in their school system too. That's one of the best points of contact as well.
Carrie, I would just like to thank them also. And I would appreciate what Marty had said, because I do not know any of them either, but I'm sure that they all are hardworking, and I would like to know who they are so I could thank them.
Yes, I think that's the challenge with this time, where we haven't been able to be present in the school or have a face-to-face school board meeting. We don't always get to see them. And so Superintendent, were you going to jump in with something here?
I'll see what I can put together and put it in the Friday update for you around our counselors and even their contact information, as board director Ward was mentioning, just to be able to even contact them, so we can put their email too, if you wanted to reach out to anyone as well. I don't know about a bio, Director Best, but I will most certainly try to get a picture and their contact information and name.
Thank you for doing that. I do see not everybody's on social media, but I know that for some of the schools, I saw it for Shelton High School, they did have a picture of their counselors with their names listed. And so maybe if that's something that Katie Diamond is doing, that could easily be just pulled and sent, through an email instead of social media, for anyone who's not quite looking at that for board members. That's just a suggestion. So yes, we will end with thanking the counselors, especially during just for, even for regular school years, but especially for these last 2 school years. I just think, as we've seen with our students and our families needing to be in contact with resources or additional supports, they've just played a critical role, and just want to thank each and every one of them. So now we will move on to 5.03, which is the school improvement plan for Olympic Middle School. And that is going to be with Marianne and the principal, Chelsea Cornwall Brady.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right, good evening to the board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what is happening at OMS, and specifically some of the work that we're doing this year for our school improvement plan. So I'd really like to, I'll start off by sharing our goals, and then I'm going to kind of tell the story with pictures. So as you can see, our goal, we did decide to keep it with both grade levels for this year. So we're looking for an increase of 5%. So we're looking for our ELA SBAC scores to increase by 5%, which in 6th grade means that they would be increasing from 39.9 to 43.9. And in 5th grade, they would be increasing from 42 to 47. And then our target group is our EL students. And so we're looking for a little bit bigger of a jump, and we have some strategies on how we're trying to achieve this. But that jump being from 2 to 10% for our 5th graders, and then in 6th grade, passing the ELA SBAC from 3.5% to 10%. Those numbers are just unacceptable. So we're really trying to drill down specifically around this group and put as many things in place as we can to support them. So I'm going to talk about our systems and our strategies, but we can, here we go. This really kind of tells the story. So one of the systems and structures that we changed going into the school year is that we restructured our leadership team. So previously we had leaders from different interdisciplinary teams. We worked on, school events, kind of more nuts and bolts type work, and we shifted to an instructional leadership team. So this team has been responsible for the creation of our SIP plan and really helping oversee the implementation of this work, which has been excellent. And so they helped us to choose some of these strategies. So I'm going to talk about those. You can see in the picture up here, this is actually from one of our staff trainings. A couple of those members are from our instructional leadership team, but they were also in groups with our staff. And we were learning about a couple of things. You can see our two books here. This summer, we read Rebound and Teaching with the Brain in Mind. So we got together before we left for summer and went through some different books, talked about what do we want to focus on, and we decided to choose these two. Rebound looks at how do we accelerate learning coming out of a pandemic or still existing during a pandemic, and specific strategies that you can use in the classroom. And then Teaching with the Brain in Mind pairs really nicely with that, but it looks at brain research and how it's connected with student success. It also was a continuation of a conversation that actually started pre-shutdown. As you know, we went through reconfiguration the year before our pandemic, and we had been having a lot of conversation as a staff about developmentally appropriate instruction. So we previously had 6th and 7th graders. We now have 5th and 6th graders. That is very different, right? So we decided to choose these two books as a team, read them. That helped us develop some common language and choose our strategies and our goals. So you can see up here, this diagram shows, I highlighted, what is developmentally appropriate instruction for this age group? It's between 8 and 15 minutes. That is daunting when you first hear that, when you're used to a more secondary model. Where perhaps the teacher spends more time talking than the student. So we talked about how to make that shift, and part of that was just educating our staff on what that type of instruction looks like. So that's some work that we've been doing. Right along with that is maximizing instructional time strategies. So that comes straight from that Rebound book, again, talking about that common language. So maximizing our instructional time looks at routines that you set up in the classroom, starting with a bell ringer, ending with an exit ticket, having this developmentally appropriate mini lessons. And then things like how do we use student grouping to the fullest extent so that students get the most out of their time in the classroom. So the posters that you see up there, our leadership team did a phenomenal job, not only educating the staff about it, but then actually having them practice some of the strategies that they were learning. So one of those techniques around grouping is collaborative posters, where students work together and present a product. So you can see that they're actually trying out those strategies. So over on the left is the training that happened. And then over on the right, you can see some pictures where staff really took the strategies that they learned about and implemented them in their classrooms, which was really neat to see. We saw a lot more group work happening, student to student collaboration. You can see in a couple of those pictures that they're creating some of those collaborative posters. So that was really exciting. The other strategy and also system that we looked at this year is, again, supporting our EL students. And so historically, one of the things that we did was students were pulled out into an intervention class, which is about 50 minutes long, and they were working on fundamentals through something like System 44. So this year we wanted to broaden how we supported those students. And so what we did is we restructured that support. We drilled down using our data and looked at those students that were scoring using those ELPA scores at about a level 1, some level 2. We used a couple of different data points. And we have them attending a sheltered instruction ELA class. So that is with an EL teacher, so somebody that is highly trained in the type of strategies that you need for scaffolding and really making sure that we're meeting their needs while still working on grade level standards. And so that's something we hope to broaden as the years go on so that more of our teachers have that type of training. But right now we were able to do that with some of our students. So some students had that option to go to an ELA class for sheltered instruction. And then for some of our students that were a little higher level, those EL teachers actually pushed into a classroom in a co-teach model. And then the rest of the day, students were fully integrated with their peers. They had some para support and different things. But this really helped to look at inclusion for our EL students, but also making sure that they were getting those grade level standards with a highly qualified teacher that knows how to provide the type of instruction that they need for ELA. So those are a couple of the things that we did, some of the strategies that we chose for our academic goal. Looking at our discipline, we decided to focus on discipline this year for our second goal. So the percentage of students who received an office discipline referral that results in exclusionary discipline action, so that could be in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, will be 5% or less of the total student population. And then drilling down further and looking at our target group, the average number of office discipline referrals per month for physical aggression, and we specifically were looking at our male students, will be 10 or less. I'm going to do the same thing with this and flip over to our pictures and tell you a little bit more about why. So we actually chose this goal. We have a similar structure as I spoke to for academics. We have a tier 1 team. There's actually quite a bit of crossover between our instructional leadership team and some of the members that chose to be a part of our tier 1 team that looks at behavior. And we used something called SWIS, which tracks our discipline data. And that first graph that you see up top is pulled from September. So as we were choosing our focus area, we could clearly see that physical aggression, and the second one on there is a minor looking at physical contact, was something that we really needed to work on as a school. Going back to some of the work we were doing again before the pandemic, we had really been having this conversation about the discrepancy between our male students and our female students. Our male students were being written up far more than our female students, and we were really starting to dissect that and work on that. So we wanted to continue some of that work, which is why we chose that specific population. So some of the strategies that we chose this year to address our goal around discipline is we adopted Second Step. I know you've heard from some of the other schools talking about Second Step. It's our SEL curriculum. We set up every day, students start the day with something called homeroom, and that is where they receive their SEL instruction. We also have during that time class meetings and class challenges. So you can see here this picture of kids in a circle. This is training that we've actually been doing with our staff for the last couple of years about the importance of students having a meeting in a circle where they actually get to look at each other while they're interacting and having these types of conversations. So I know it's probably hard to see those slides, but our counselors oversee our Second Step curriculum, and they send out each week to the staff the resources that they need, which includes the slides that are shown. And so each week there is a lesson and there is a challenge and there's meeting topics. So I picked out a couple to just share with you guys. And that first one is talking about empathy. So that week in homeroom, they had some lessons around empathy. And they actually, this picture with the girl in the pink sweatshirt up here is they were doing a class challenge where they were actually mirroring each other's motions and then emotions, and they were practicing doing that. So that was pretty neat. And then down here in this picture where they are looking up at the screen, this was actually, I had the great opportunity to actually attend this homeroom last week where they were discussing some pretty difficult conversations around stereotypes, bias, and racism. They got to watch a pretty touching video from some students that had experienced that. and then have some really tough conversations about, have we seen this happen at OMS? What can we do as students to help combat this? What do you think the adults in our school can do to help with this? So there was some pretty awesome conversation. In fact, one student said, I think we need to do more of this. We need to have more conversation about it. So that was really great to hear. One of the other things that we are doing is increasing the amount of physical activity that they're having throughout the day. When we looked at times of day that physical aggression was happening, it's really during a lull of physical activity. We know our students need to get moving. And so we implemented a couple of different things for that. We added another recess area, so there was more opportunity to run around. We also, there's a picture in the bottom right of students playing basketball. So we decided to open our gym in the morning, which ended up linking right along to our PBIS system. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But students actually earn something called Eagle tickets, and they can use them for various things throughout the school. One of the things they can use them for is going and having time in the gym in the morning, play some basketball, run around, have some physical activity. So that has really helped. You can see a picture of brain breaks. That's another way we're increasing physical activity, but also increasing that student-to-student interaction. So this is something that we've trained our staff in. It's a series of breaks. It's actually a large, have it with me, deck of cards that teachers can choose from with different types of breaks that kids can take in the classroom. Some of them are quick 2-minute stretch breaks. There's chair yoga. Some of them are connected to instruction and give quick ways that students can get up and participate in the content that you're actually teaching, or quick group activities. So again, just students getting up, students interacting and moving around. So that has been great. And then in the upper right-hand corner, speaking of our amazing counselors, that is a picture of one of our counselors, Kayla Eichhorn, running a small group. So we also have small groups happening where students can have a more focused, targeted instruction around peer-to-peer interaction, positive communication. And then we purchased this year a series of games that required students to collaborate and work together. And so you can see some pictures of that. We purchased some of those types of activities for other areas of our school. So that picture where it looks like they're building giant Jenga blocks is actually in our library, but again, requires students to work together. So I'm gonna keep going here. I just wanted to share a few other pictures, and this relates to the school improvement plan because of course we are always continuing to take care of our school climate. That is a huge part of our student success and also our staff success. So on this particular page, you can see these students that are lined up in front of our Izzy Drinks and Cookies. This is our student leadership team. It has some of our ASB officers and other students that are participating. We had an assembly, a series of small assemblies, because of course, COVID safe, where the leadership team got to hand out some treats to those students. It was an end of trimester celebration. Our student leadership team also runs our student store. So you can see there our school-wide expectations are be safe, kind, and work hard. Students can earn Eagle tickets when they are doing those things, and they can use them to cash in. Teachers have stores within their classrooms. They can use them for the gym, or every day our student store is open. So you can see a picture of our students purchasing different things from the student store there. And we don't accept money, we only accept Eagle tickets to keep that motivation going. And then we have been lucky enough to continue to work with some of our community groups. So we have the Shelton Kiwanis Club up here, this gentleman helping us to hand out our Golden Eagle. Unfortunately, they can't come into the school right now, but we had gotten to a place where they could help us with those awards. So we're hoping to get back to that. We give out that award to 4 students once a month. And then over here on the right, I have my wonderful assistant principal, Ms. Kundal, and a representative from our community credit union. This was at our end of tri assembly. We were drawing tickets for students that had earned excellent Eagles, and they actually got a $25 savings certificate to the bank. So we're trying to continue some of those things that we've had in place that we know really help take care of our school climate and our PBIS system. And finally, this last picture here, we have really been working hard, again, thinking about school climate on making sure that students feel safe and that they feel welcome and part of our school community. So right down to the signage that we have on our walls, you can see the "You belong here" we have throughout our school. We've also done a lot of work with students' heritage and celebrating diversity. We have some posters hanging on our wall of different scientists from different cultures. They're in English and in Spanish, celebrating their heritage and women that are successful. So again, just trying to take care of our school climate. On the right, we also need to be taking care of our staff. So this year we have a staff morale team that helps us to plan activities that'll care for our staff. You can see they also organized a staff band and they played for students right before we went to winter break. They had been practicing all week and students got to enter the building to some of their favorite teachers playing them some Christmas songs, which was pretty fun. We brought in a food truck during conferences. We delivered treats to staff before break. And then my favorite, this picture down here on the right, take what you need. Our art teacher, Miss Hall, she's also on the staff morale team. She did an activity in her art class where students got to write little notes to their teachers, positive, kind notes, and then hung it near the staff room so they could take a little something for themselves. So that was pretty neat. So always trying to take care of that school climate and school culture. That was a lot of information. So do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Chelsea. That was a lot of information, but it was a lot of great information. But let me check in with the rest of the board at this time too. Does anyone have any questions or comments that you would like to make at this time?
I just have one question I'll be asking the other principals as we go through this thing. It's just sort of came to my mind, but as one of the primary goals of our strategic plan is safety. My question is, and I'm data driven from all my past experience. When it comes to the more physical things, the fights, how confident are we that because while they're a lower probability, they have a higher consequence kind of event, that we're tracking that data fairly accurately? Because those things, as I share with Mr. Jesse from my background in emergency management, those can escalate, unfortunately, very rapidly and get out of control. So how confident are we that the data is I know there's parameters, so some stuff doesn't get reported, but how accurate do we think we're at in those metrics?
Well, I can speak on this, and if anybody else wants to jump in, is I think that we are very accurate in our reporting. We use Skyward and we use Swift. So it is tracked in a couple of different ways, but all of our schools have systems in place, and we even have a common referral so that we're using the same language on how we track incidents that happen in our school. And so I actually think the reporting is very accurate.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll go
Right ahead,
next.
Director Relander.
Yeah, two things really. First of all, in today's climate, the fact that you're putting so much emphasis on taking care of your staff, great job. That exemplifies the leadership that should be in your position. The other question I have is around the acts of aggression. How much of that is stemming from social media, cyberbullying, the fact that it's available on campus now, and like that?
Honestly, I think the increase we're seeing for physical aggression has more to do with the fact that students were not physically interacting with each other for 18 months. So there is, of course, social media issues, but I don't see any more social media issues than I did 3 years ago. It plays a part in certain arguments and fights, but the bigger issue that we're seeing is just students are relearning how to interact with each other appropriately and how to regulate their emotions again and how to, be tired throughout the school day and interact with people. So that's why, the things that we're putting in place are really teaching them how to interact, collaborate, have disagreements, make up. And so we do a lot of mediations and, restorative practices. But yeah, I wouldn't personally say that social media has more of an impact than it did previously, in my own opinion.
Okay. Well, you're teaching them to people again. Very good. Thank you.
Yes, it's an important skill to have, that's for sure.
Sandy, did you have some comments or questions?
I did. Both Matt and Marty had great questions, and I just kind of wanted to follow up a little bit. So do we have, that's interesting perspective that she's not seeing more social media issues or cyber issues than she did before COVID. And I just wondered, did we have a sense that other principals also share that feeling? In other words, they don't believe they're seeing more. From my own perspective, I'm hearing more about it, but maybe that's just one of those.
Well, I sure think the adults have sure gotten more active on social media since they were all stuck at home. So you might be hearing more about it that way. I don't know, that's a really good question, Sandy. I'm not sure at the older grades. We're of course talking about, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. And so I'm sure social media would be a greater concern for, our high school and maybe even our junior high.
And I'm happy to see the opportunity for increased movement at all the grade levels. I know that was in the school improvement plans at the last meeting as well. A lot of positive activities with positive outcomes. And, how can families help support this?
That's a really great question, and one that we've talked a lot about. We try and talk. I'm glad you guys will be getting our weekly calls now, because many times we'll share some of the things that are coming up that week that we're going to be working on with students. Or, hey, don't forget to ask your student about such and such. And so continuing that conversation at home, I think is really beneficial. And so we try and kind of keep that open communication. And man, I would say that increased physical activity for at home as well as at school. We always share that with parents.
Thank you very much.
I do look forward to getting back to a place where we can invite, parents into our building and get together more, because I think there's more that we can do when this barrier is removed.
And if I could change gears for one question about the sheltered instruction. Judging by the name sheltered, does that mean they're, taken out of the classroom into a separate environment? Is that why it's sheltered, or does that mean something else?
So it can actually, sheltered instruction can happen more than one way. It can be in a co-teach model where you are actually in the classroom and it has to do with the strategies that you're using. And so that's why we mentioned we have our sheltered instruction where they're pulled out in a very small group, but still getting the grade level standards and curriculum, and also in a co-teach model in the general classroom. So shelter doesn't actually just have to mean pulled out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. I thought it was a great presentation. I appreciate just hearing again what many of the board members have already said, but just the mindful way that you are going about getting student activity. I liked hearing about the fact that, with English language learners, that they are in with other students to learning. I don't always understand all of the educational jargon because I don't work in education. And there's a lot of information that is out there So we definitely appreciate the reports that you're sending out. I know that your school particularly has kept up with after school activities for kids. And I think that it's wonderful that you've identified places where there wasn't physical activity, and maybe that's why aggression was coming up, and then you had a strategy in place to deal with that. So there's just so many things. I mean, between the books that you're all reading, like you said, to have the common language, to Mrs. Hall, the art teacher, specifically having students put things out there that could be heartwarming for the staff too. So just a lot going on during this whole time that sounds like some of it started pre-pandemic and then emphasized during pandemic, and you've kept things going. So just really appreciate the report on the school and seeing the pictures of the students. And it definitely will be nice when we can have more parent involvement and some of these COVID barriers are taken away. So definitely appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much for giving us your time tonight.
Thank you.
We will move on now to 5.04, which is the school improvement plan for Oakland Bay Junior High. And this is with Principal Mario Juarez and Marianne Marshall.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know if you cannot see it. Can you see it?
Yes, we got it.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right, let me get it going. All right. And oops. Okay, technical. All right, here we go. Well, so good afternoon, members of the board of directors. So I'm happy to be able to present to you our school improvement plan for the 2021-2020 school year, along with the amazing work that our faculty, staff, and students are doing to meet our goals. So the first goal that I'd like to present for you this evening is our English language arts goal. And I want to echo what Principal Targus said last week about the fact that Mr. Jesse had encouraged us to really meet students where they're at. So at Oakland Bay Junior High School, that's what we're doing. We want to meet students where they're at right now. So based on that, the goal that we have set for this year is that by June 2022, 50% of students at Oakland Bay Junior High School will demonstrate a level 3 or higher for their informational reading score as measured by the SBA. So to do that, one of the strategies that we're employing is that teachers in our ELA and our English language learner classes will create activities that will require the use of sentence stems for communication of the ideas and evidence for meeting standards. And then one of the systems that we're going to use to make sure that we are checking ourselves and making sure that we are doing that effectively is the use of our PLCs. So I listed as one of the systems being that the PLC teams will utilize at least one team meeting every 4 to 6 weeks to review data connected to the use of sentence stems and how the usage has allowed students to demonstrate mastery of learning targets. So one of the reasons why sentence stems are so important is because of the fact that in order to be able to read, and specifically with informational data, punctuations play a big role here. I think many of us can even think about some memes where they poke fun at, we put a comma in one place, it changes the meaning to something else. But the reality is that without proper punctuation, that's one of the key parts of being able to effectively read. So I have a couple little pictures I want to show you. So the first one here is a group of students in one of our English language learner classes, and they are working on they're working on a reading assignment right here, but they're also working on actual usage of punctuation. Being someone who speaks French and Spanish, I can tell you that there are some key differences between the languages as far as punctuations go. I also want to show you this middle picture here, the one that says fanboys. So some people, when they think of fanboys, they think of, for example, the people who are like, oh, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm going to dress up like a stormtrooper or like Chewbacca, which is a very typical type of fanboys. But in this case, what it's referring to is an acronym for the words for, and, or, but, or, yet, so. So these are words that can either connect two independent clauses to create a compound sentence, or it can be used with a comma to create a dependent clause followed by an independent clause. So I thought this is a really creative thing I saw in the classroom as a way of connecting kids to this concept, not using not only the acronym for remembering it, but also the fact that it connects to something they're very familiar with, which is the idea of fanboys. And then I actually saw this in another classroom where they're using the exact same idea, but connecting it to what they're actually reading in the class. So we have one class that's working with The Hobbit right now. And in this classroom, they basically took the fact that they're working on The Hobbit and connected it to the actual sentence structures that they're also working with in the classes. So here's some other things I want to share with you that I saw that's being used. So in case anyone didn't know, kids do tend to get a little tired in class and look out windows. So some teachers have put some reading strategies, some guiding ideas that they can look at it as they start to doze off into the distance. You'll see in the middle here, this one right here, where you see claim, evidence, reasoning. This is a particular model that's used for answering questions, and it's one that's been worked with across various schools in our district. And at OBJH in prior years and building on that this year, different departments are doing that. So for example, the math department, if you take a look right here, this is an example of their implementation of claim, evidence, response, which is, I want to share that with you as an example of how our ELA goal isn't just ELA, but it's really about across the curriculum. So the next goal that we have this year is around attendance. We're a little bit different from other schools. Now, I do want to assure the board of directors that when we began working on our goals at the beginning of the year, we did utilize the state-approved crystal ball. So we were fully aware of the September Delta variant, the December Omicron variant, the January winter weather, the May, well, we'll get to May later. But our goal is this, so that by June 2022, 90% of students at Oakland Bay Junior High School will be in regular attendance. So you know what the reality is, we're always going to have barriers. There's always barriers, pre-COVID, post-COVID, anything COVID, there's going to be barriers. So our job really is to look at those barriers and help bring them down. So one of the things that we identify is the idea of using random moments of rewarding students just for being at school, not for anything other than just being at school. And then by extension, we realize, we have kids who can't be at school for different reasons. So we realize, we want to make sure that we honor those kids as well. So we're actually extending this to kids who are home if they're on isolation or quarantine, or if they have an excused absence on the random period and day of the drawing. And then the system that we're using to help with that and our other strategies is our MTSS team, our amazing counseling team. The administrative team working together to identify the barriers to attendance and provide targeted interventions as needed. I do want to give a shout out to Stacy Adams and to Debbie Lee, who are two counselors. They have worked tremendously hard with admin and with Dr. Tarazi's attendance task force at our school to help bring down barriers for certain kids. We have worked to get kids who would otherwise maybe not be attending school to re-engage with school. We have not had 100% success, but we've had some pretty significant success, and it's in no small part due to the efforts of our counseling team in connections with our greater MTSS and administrative teams. So I want to show you some pictures here as well, because besides the strategies that we employed in our school improvement plan, one of the things that Dr. Tarazi and I kind of saw early on when we started here was the fact that there really aren't any ASB clubs. There's yearbook, but there really is no other ASB club. And I think we can all agree that kids get connected to school when they actually find a place outside of just the academics. So with that, I want to give a quick shout out to Director Mark Smith for the amazing work he's done, really building our athletic programs here. But we also have teachers who have stepped up on their own to create clubs and activities after school for our kids to participate in. In these pictures here, you'll see three of them. This one right here, the from left to right, the first three. These are actually students who participate in our Cyber Patriots Club. This club is run by Mike Burlett, and he actually does some work with Shelton High School as well. And these are some kids who are basically working, I think on a Saturday actually, getting ready for one of their competitions. And I'm happy to say that the OBJH team made the semifinals in the state. And then when I was looking at pictures, I said, when we talk about attendance, we really just need to just kind of talk about the kids. So this last picture here, the class that I took a picture of with the kids working on that assignment in the ELL class, in the English language learners class, I just said, hey guys, want to be in a picture? And they're like, great. So I'm like, all right, let's go line up. And then, by the way, don't tell a bunch of junior high kids, hey, just express yourself. And then also, fun fact, with the face mask, cheese doesn't really work either. So I just said, hey, give a thumbs up, give a peace sign, show us how you're doing. So that's the picture you see there. So to illustrate the fact that attendance really means that the kids are at school. One of the things that we know is that attendance is the pulse of a school. If kids are coming, then you tend to have a pretty active school life. As attendance goes down, then that's a sign. That's a sign that there's systems that need to be looked at. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from board members at this time?
Yes, I have one. Where it said by June of 2022, you want to have 90% regular attendance.
Mhm.
Can I ask what regular attendance, like, is there a particular
Absolutely.
amount of days that is, or what does that involve?
Absolutely. So what we're talking about there is that students are in attendance. Obviously, we're going to have some kids who are going to have excused absences, but what we're looking at is that the excused absences fall within the range, what I call the acceptable range, which is that it's not really triggering any attendance notices based on the Becca law. But beyond that, what we're also looking for is the fact that we're seeing that students who are in attendance are actually in attendance. Excuse me, let me rephrase that the students who are in attendance are actually able to attend the full day, that we're actually getting students that are actually engaged fully in the entire programming. For various reasons, we do have a couple of students that are not. And then again, some of those are students that we're working with because of the fact that there's been some trauma issues due to the COVID pandemic that we're working with to get fully back to school. So that's what I consider, that's what we consider full attendance at school the entire day. And again, within that range of within the Becca law. So that doesn't trigger any attendance letters.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go right ahead, Matt.
So, and you'll probably notice over my tenure that this will be a reoccurring theme, but as opposed in correlation to participation with sport activities, things like that, where attendance is a requirement, are you seeing, or do you know that you're seeing a positive reflection and more constant attendance with kids that are involved in those sports?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I can go beyond that. One of the things we're also seeing is it's also impacting behavior. So one of the things that we're seeing is that some of the students that tend to need some supports, they tend to be a little bit more reflective on their behaviors when they are engaged in sporting events, because again, the athletic supports the schools and they also have expectations regarding attendance, but also around behavior. So we've noticed that the students who are engaged in those activities, we see improvements in both of those metrics.
Otherwise, it was a great looking plan. As you were going through everything, I was reminded of one of the leadership books that I've read and love. And if you go to my office, you'll see it says Tomorrowland on it, The Wisdom of Walt. And one of the things that they found is that to get people to keep coming back and paying extra money to go to Disneyland is all the educational components of it were also very entertaining. And so when you see kids smiling and attending your stuff and going through it, it reminds me of that. But that, that's one of those, the leadership styles that I truly subscribe to.
And let me apologize. There seems to be I think on my end, there might be a lag with the internet. So at different points, my screen is freezing. So if I have to ask you to repeat the question, please forgive me.
I ramble. It's fine.
Oh, no, sir. No, I just at different points, it's freezing up. So I just want to give that warning to everybody else.
Yeah, Mario, I like to ask the same questions as Chelsea, about
Sure.
the tracking the data and the role of social media, especially at the junior high and the high school level. I mean, I find, and I have a grandson that just turned 18, and I don't know how the hell that happened. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah, I know, Brenda. It's like, and a couple in between. So it's just like, and they're so technologically engaged,
right?
To the point of, and I consider myself fairly computer literate, but it's just like this is, and they always seem to be a step ahead of us adults in how they're communicating. So back to, do you feel that the data tracking the more, the violent kind of stuff is fairly accurate? And then how does social media playing a role in how you're, engaging and trying to attract to reduce or eliminate the activity.
Yeah. So I'll agree with Ms. Brady in the fact that yes, the data is accurate. We do track it well. We do use a uniform tracking system. I think where the difference between schools is that I will say that once you get to that junior high level, yes, the internet and those websites and those apps become a bigger issue. I will tell you that in my experience, I worked in high schools and middle schools. I can tell you that the first time that this ever really started happening to where these things started happening in my career personally was back when I worked in Seattle. And this was happening at a school that had middle and high school students. And it was actually an independent school, not a public school. But in my experience as administrator, I will tell you that I worked at a high school and I worked at Oakland Bay Junior High School. This is the first full year that we've had the students. I'll tell you that it's not surprising to me the level that we're seeing. I would like to share some of the things that we are doing from our end. So one of the things that I learned a couple of years ago is the reaching out to the actual companies. So in past years, when I worked at a high school as assistant principal, we had much more success with Instagram, bringing things down from their page. We've had some success this year with that. And honestly, unfortunately, it's become a little bit more problematic, more challenging. So one of the things that we always do whenever we see those sites is I'll send a request out, and I encourage every person who has an Instagram account to do the same thing, to flag it, because the more flaggings that they get, the quicker they are to respond to it. Regarding TikTok, because we've seen some things on there as well.
Yeah.
We have not had any success. I personally have multiple times on a TikTok account that I created, requested them to take things down. And they have not. I've actually reached out to teams of students and faculty and parents who have also done the same thing, but unfortunately, the websites on there have not been taken down. And then I have not seen anything on Twitter nor on Facebook, but I think probably people like us are the ones that use those. So, but that's what we're doing from our end as well. We are aware of it, and we are in the immediate addressing as quickly as we can. I think the moving forward, and this is a conversation I've had with Dr. Tarazi, and I think it's a conversation we're going to have it with multiple schools, is working on that digital citizenship piece and teaching students how to be, digital citizens and productive digital citizens. Because one of the things I've learned as a universal theme for the last couple of years that I've been working and dealing with these issues is kids do not realize that Snapchat doesn't really go away.
Right.
They don't realize that that video you put on TikTok doesn't really go away. And, that's one of the things that I think and I believe we're going to be working towards that. But I think once the kids learn, knowledge is power. But right now, that's what we're doing at OBJH, both reactively when the incident happens, but also proactively when we start getting information. I will tell you that I believe that Dr. Tarazi have a pretty good system. Kids are coming and talking with us. They are starting to trust us because we're new, but they're seeing that our word is real. When we tell them we're not going to go repeat your name, we don't go repeat your name. I can tell you that there are a lot of kids at the school now who basically will say, oh, snitching is blah, blah, but they'll come and talk with me privately because they know that they don't like what's going on. And they know that I'm going to do what I can to make it stop. So I'd love to say that we can stop 100%, but we can't right now, but we are working on it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just like to step in with, lean into what Mario was saying is that, it is unfortunate that there is social media and students choose to use it in a way that's not helpful. But what we know is when that social media then now interrupts and disrupts the learning of other students and there's a connection, we have to step in. And so I agree with Mario with building that digital citizenship and creating safe places for students to share their concerns. And I do applaud Mario when he has reached out to these companies, tried to get this to shut down. He's having active communication with his families and they're sharing this information. But unfortunately, social media is disruptive. And when it flows into the school and disrupts learning, we have to address it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll chime in there too. That is, the digital citizenship is something that is a new skill that we all have to learn. And I commend Principal for being on top of those companies. He's got a lot of good information. My question was going to be, is there a need for additional training on those areas? My guess is that maybe things change too fast. It'd be awfully tough to keep up with some kind of training, but if that was a possibility. Then another couple of questions, I'll just throw this out here real quick. If a student is on quarantine, how does that affect their attendance? And do we have a totally different realm? We have a testing date for SBAC yet? Do we know when that's going to happen? Okay.
So so the first question, if I believe, was regarding the training for issues related to social media and the internet. Is that correct?
Yes. Training for.
So with that, yeah. So I think I need training still, because it's like every other day some 5-year-old comes with a new app. So so it's going to be a constantly evolving process, especially as we start moving further along. I mean, you're starting now getting into technology that has AI. I've been starting to read some things about how some of those apps are being used now to really harass, intimidate, and bullying. But I think, and I don't want to step in too much into, but I think that with digital citizenship and that idea of really teaching kids how to be digital citizens, it would prepare them for, regardless of what application, what website, what Android someone comes up with. It's really the idea of teaching kids how to use technology the way it's supposed to be used effectively. You can use it for fun too, but correctly. But without knowing the full ramifications of what can happen with some of the things happening, I think that can be problematic, and it is.
All right, I'm gonna jump in here. So when we talk about digital citizenship and we look at our technology standards, that is embedded in the standards for technology throughout the grade levels, and it's both grade level appropriate. For the student. When it comes to the SBAC testing dates, we can send that out to the school board and let you know when our state testing will be happening in each of our buildings. And in regards to your question about the students who are out on COVID, we do have facilitators of continued learning. So when a student is out on COVID for an extended period of time, they are connected with a facilitator of continued learning, which is a certificated teacher, and they are tutored and taught while they're out of the classroom. And so they are marked present because they are still getting their learning through a certified teacher during the day, either through the use of technology, through Zoom, through telephone, through things like that.
Very good. Thank you all for answering those questions. I appreciate it. And a good presentation.
Can I ask one more thing really fast?
Go right ahead.
As somebody who regularly hands his phone to somebody younger than him and just says, make it work, with your digital citizenship and the things that you're seeing in the reporting, is that something that you think would be appropriate to put in your Friday updates so that parents are getting some of this information and not just when it comes home with a distraught kid or some kid locked in their bedroom trying to figure out a new app that the parents don't even know is on their phone? I'm sitting here thinking it might be a good idea, but I'm one guy.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, the idea of putting into my weekly announcements information regarding specific apps of concern, is that what I'm hearing? Or?
Well, you mentioned that if the more we report, the more things can be brought down. I didn't know. I had no idea. And I have a fistful of kids. So, that's something that I would find helpful personally. I don't know that it would be something that you could do or whatever.
Yeah, I'm happy. I think it's a great idea, actually, because again, like the more people that start doing that, it tends to draw their attention. So I'm happy to, definitely include that about the idea that if they, again, if you are aware of something online that is targeting kids, the process and how it works, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
and I will just say thank you very much for the presentation. Having two daughters at your school right now, I appreciated hearing what I heard at the PTSO meeting last week that I attended, where there are more student connection activities happening and things that are more fun. I appreciated your presentation and hearing all the answers to the questions tonight too. So thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
with that, we will move on to 5.05, which is the strategic plan presentation with Superintendent Jesse.
Thank you, Board President Davidson. I will go ahead and just jump right into it if that's okay. Might want to grab your water. All right, there we go. Great. All right. So for this evening, really wanted to get a chance to get to the school board about updating us about where we're at in our development process for a new strategic plan for the Shelton School District. We are looking at a 5-year plan. And so that would start for the 22-23 school year. So the next school year, the current goal and strategic plan for the Shelton School District is ending this year. And so it is most certainly an opportunity for us to come together and make sure that we develop a plan that matches the needs of our students. And so ensuring that we're building ourselves for the future, 5 years and beyond. So we have some belief statements. The steering committee and the planning teams and the staff focus groups are helping to shape our belief statements. And so I'll be reading, we'll have an opportunity to share those and get input from you board directors this evening on whether those belief statements match what you believe are the essential values and directions and norms of where we should shape our day-to-day actions. And then at the end, we'll also be having an opportunity to look at the direction in the cadence of a school year. This is the time for budget and staffing, but it's not just budget and staffing, it's also started designing professional development. So what are we doing? And there's some things this evening I want to get in front of you to see if you're fine with that direction, knowing that we do not have a cemented strategic plan, but that we do have ongoing pieces of work that we've been doing here in the school district. Again, part of our academic programs and services. So I don't think there'll be new things, but they are things that lead us with more significant investment as we look to narrow our scope and fully invest in some strategies for the, again, 5-year period. Just a quick recap of this process. All the way back in October, we went out and did a survey of 570 families. We also started to put together the charter and recruited folks to be on the steering committee. So we have 14 members on the steering committee comprised of different stakeholder groups. We have educators, we have families, guardians. We also have business leaders, and we have one principal and one person from central office, as well as Sally Carr, who's our former board president on there. That steering committee has a really big responsibility because they're really taking in all this information that comes from the community, coupled with their own experiences and knowledge, and also information coming from staff. So they're kind of the clearinghouse of helping to guide what are the pieces that get into this drafted document. And of course, in addition to the school board. And so that's another reason why I'm checking in this evening. So since then, we've taken off. We've done a number of things, engaging with stakeholders. I'll get in a little bit more with that here in the next slide. And then design work. Since December, we've been putting together all those pieces of information, doing what I would like to call the sense making What does this mean when people say, please, this is what we need to focus on? So we obviously need educators, school leaders, come together and put together the pieces that we know. All right, so this looks like these are the areas we need to focus on. What are the initiatives that we should be lifting off of? And then also, what is the research or evidence-based practices that we could do, all within the context of the Shelton School District? Some things that work for school districts down the road or across the nation will not be things that necessarily fit for us or even work for us. So that's why it's important for us to have these different groups, both a steering committee and then a planning team, which is again comprised of administrators who are again experts in the field of education. Then ultimately we want to land with a plan. So hoping next month be able to present to the school board initial blush of what the outline is for the strategic plan with all of the key elements in it. So here we are, just to see where their arrow is, where we're along the continuum, moving all the way back from October. Now here in February, we have a school board meeting, and then we have a couple more steering team meetings and a planning team meeting. Already, we had one last night, and I have two more next week as well. So lots of work going on the strategic plan. I can tell you it's no short or simple lift, especially when you're doing it the right way. So again, here's a copy of what the report looked like for the survey. There's some areas, I have a slide on that. And then we also did about 10 focus groups. Right now, I'm in the middle of focus groups with all of the staff, going out to every single school, meeting with the staff, going through a very similar presentation that you're receiving this evening, and then giving us feedback on not only the belief statements, but then also where our priorities are at, things that are really fit for their particular classroom or their school, so that we can, again, try to match things up as best as possible. So you're asking yourself, all right, well, 570 people, what did they say? What was the impact that came from the survey? Here's the 4 major themes. They really want to emphasize safety. We're in a pandemic, not a surprise. What they had here was looking at both the physical and social emotional safety for their student. So that is really what we call a whole child. What are the different things they need? And that also, since we know that our Family Resource Center presented at the last board meeting, you can see just exactly what we're talking about. So many of our families, so many of our students need food, they need clothing, they need basic services, including dental, seeing physicians, mental health services, in addition to academic and their physical safety. So that's one emphasis. Academic supports, things that we know that we want to provide academic achievement across the different content areas, and as well as rigor. Preparedness, so a lot of real world life skills. We've heard from both educators, business leaders, how to interview, how to want to stay in your job and not just quit. And also just around communication. Can you give a presentation? Can you talk about different topics? Can you even debate about something within your own self-management? Then the last one is access for all. A lot of folks recognize the increased diversity and want to celebrate that, but they know reflective, and as you saw in the presentations from OMS and OBJH, we need our schools to reflect the diversity of our population. And so there's some moves that families wanted, and they want to make sure that everyone had access and opportunity here, irregardless of their background. So the focus groups, which I really thoroughly enjoyed, and I want to thank Katie Diamond. I don't think she's on this call, but Katie and I did a road show, many different places, evenings, getting information from smaller groups. That's really nice to talk to anywhere from a handful to 20 folks. Well, we got up to 30 something students in some of those focus groups, but what is working, what isn't working for the district, what would you change, what do you want to keep? And then we can drill down in some of those questions and ask, what does that mean for you, or how does that look right now? And then other students or other focus group participants, whether that's families and also business owners, in addition to students, look to say, all right, here's our themes. So those are the things you can see below there. What do we need for? Really wanting to focus down some of the themes that you saw from the survey. In particular, I think we needed to look at who our staff are. We know that we want to build really positive relationships with our students, and ultimately we need better transitions. We have quite a few transitions here in this district. We also are a feeder for other school districts. So we just need to be very mindful that a lot of kids are coming and going. Transitions can be very stressful, and they're not just in an event. So we can't just say, hey, we had an orientation meeting and here you go. Students were very vocal about that. And so, if you think of yourself just even as a board director coming onto this board and all the things you saw for policy procedures and things you had to learn, students have very similar experiences. It's a lot to come to a new school. It can be very stressful. Not only just with your academics, but just trying to create friendships and getting to know the staff at the school. So those are the major themes. I think you'll see those reflected in our priorities. Before I get to those, we did want to focus on belief statements. So you can choose values or you can choose belief statements. We decided to go with what is our core beliefs. So what is the things that we want to uphold that guide us in our behaviors? I think I forget who asked a question earlier by one of the board directors, but in different situations that you may receive around even social media that students have to handle, that we want to be adaptive to whatever situation it is. So our core beliefs, no matter what's thrown at us or the situations we have to take on, those core beliefs can guide us through that. And so what I'm going to do on this next slide is share our core beliefs that were put together by the steering committee. They were obviously informed from the greater community and the staff, but I would love for you to take a look at them. They're drafty, but to get your input, and I want to hear that and record that of what your thoughts are. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and we'll go through each one. So there's just 4. Those are the 4 that we have for you. And I'm going to go right here. So we know that we want for ourselves equitable access to success. We believe all students should have equitable access to rigorous educational opportunities to meet their needs, interests, passions, and post-secondary goals. So, school board, would love to hear your, what sentiment resonates with you? What, if anything, would you change? Are we missing anything on this?
For me, that statement encompasses, I think everything that I'm thinking. It definitely resonates with me, saying that this is, rigorous educational opportunities for all. I like just post-secondary goals, whatever those may be, because that obviously encompasses many different pathways. So I don't necessarily have anything that I would change with this. Other school board members, please feel free to chime in and give your thoughts on these.
I would agree with you, Carrie. I like the focus on a goal at the end, because everything leading up to that is sequential to the process of education opportunities, meets their individual needs. Because one of the things I think that Matthew and I have talked about is not everybody needs to go to college, but everybody needs some kind of follow-up post-secondary goals. And so what would work for child A would not work for child B. focusing on their needs and their passions. I think we have captured that particular components within this goal, this belief statement.
I really like the way that it reads. I like that it's very inclusive, and I mean it brings the definition of equity to the forefront, and to echo what Marty was saying is that, you know, the post-secondary goals are not just college, not just, you know, whatever, but I think it points out without smacking anybody in the face that, you know, graduation should be a given, and it's just a step on your way to post-secondary goals, as well as, you know, like I said, it goes back to a great equity statement by the district. So good job on this one.
Yes, I agree with what everybody has said so far. I think it is a very, very good statement on beliefs of Shelton School District.
I'll jump in here. And I agree with a lot of what's been said. I'm trying to look at the statement from a different perspective of, are we over promising anything, over committing? And so I'm kind of wondering, you know, what if somebody has a need, interest, or passion that isn't within our ability to, you know, create or provide? Are we, you know, is there any danger of overcommitment with those words? Over promising.
Boy, I not to disagree, because I don't think I do here. Otherwise, I think it says should, and not shall in this, and I think that's an appropriate word. And I think that the school should push itself. And, you know, if we've got 50 people that want to walk on Mars, then we should be working that direction. I don't think that that's over promising anything. I think that that's pointing towards, you know, we're gonna do our best to make sure that the passions and interests are out there, and that we're gonna foster those.
Yeah, I would agree with Matt on that. Just, you know, I think in this process of doing these, you know, focus groups and student things, it's listening to what our community needs are, to what our student needs are, and making sure that our school is providing those educational opportunities. It can be ever evolving.
Right, just like the superintendent was saying, you know, it has to be flexible enough to change with us as we grow and as the needs of students and community change.
Yeah, I appreciate you looking at it from a different perspective. I think that's important to do too. Are there any other? Go right ahead, Superintendent.
We've got 3 more and a lot more to go. So I'm gonna roll this a little bit. You can cut me out. Don't worry about it. If you have something else, you can always email me too. I know sometimes good thoughts. Many of you have demonstrated that so far to me that have been thinking about what we were talking about, and send me an email later. So if you have something, please do that. All right. Oops. Lost my toggle here. There we go. All right. Community oriented. We believe in outreach and collaborative involvement of all communities, especially those at the margins. Our curricular choices represent the entirety of our community.
I don't like the phrase, especially those at the margins, because going back to the equity statement, I want this to be inclusive of everybody and totally community oriented, but I don't want it to be especially anybody. I want everybody to have that equal access. that equal promise. And I want all of the portions of our community to be looked at, going back to equity, but with equity. And when you throw in especially those at whatever the next words are, I think that you take away something from a strong statement otherwise.
So perhaps more along the lines of including versus especially. I think that's a good good point to make, Matt. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
I definitely feel like, the last statement resonates with me. Our curricular choices represent the entirety of our community. That's the main point. I'll have to think through this one a little bit more myself. So it might take a little more ruminating.
Well, I agree. As soon as I read it, I didn't, especially those at the margins. I don't think we need that in there. I think when we say we believe in outreach and collaborative involvement of all communities, that is all communities, that we don't have to specify one.
Almost slightly disagree, Marilyn, in that sometimes we need to set parameters. And it says, and I agree with Matthew though, on the especially those. I was thinking something, ensuring those at the margins, or those that all, and I don't know, once again, I agree with Carrie, it's gonna take a little work on this one, because often when you say all communities, you tend to overlook some. Just inadvertently, and if we focus in on those that are of greater need, I just don't know how to say it in this particular phrase. So I'll massage that in my brain and email something to you, Mr. Jesse.
Yeah, and this would be a good time to. We have a lot of people on this, so
yeah,
inputting on this. So more to come. These are, the sentiment is the most important thing. So if you don't find the words, and you're not there, but you're like, hey, this is what I really wanted to represent. Those are really helpful. Those are helpful comments. So if you have that, please send it to me. I'm most certainly getting it to the steering committee.
Yes, I think, the point sometimes is that these marginalized communities don't feel like they are seen. And so how do you, I think we need to think through how we want to put that and think through some of the wording with this. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspectives. All right, on to student agency and voice. Students are equally and empowered participants in the learning environment where their educational journey is front and center. They are allowed to be their own agents of success, invited, heard, and respected by their peers and adults.
There was a time in my life when I would have jumped up and down and said students shouldn't be here. But in today's day and age, where technology, the world, everything is changing at such a fast rate, I think we're almost at a point where, with the exception of some history, math, and a little science, the students are keeping up with it as fast or better than teachers, parents, adults, and everything. And I think this is a pretty good statement. And I think it's very reflective of today's society, if nothing else. And like I said, a more stubborn, younger person in the past, I don't know that I would have agreed with this, but I think it's well placed, and good job.
I just wanted to say I also really like this statement just because like as a student myself with a lot of peers that I know, not everybody plans to like attend college and go in the same direction. So I think it's really cool where it's like it's their educational like journey and where they want to go and what they want to pursue, as opposed to it being like this standardized path that it used to be for everybody and everyone was kind of expected to go in the same direction, if that makes sense. But so I like how there's emphasis on what like each student's educational journey, what they want it to be.
Thank you for your feedback, Richard. That's really appreciated. I think it's great to hear from you as a student directly. And I would agree, just seeing my daughters and how they are participating in their education. This statement, definitely the whole thing resonates with me. It is their journey. So I don't have anything to change with this one.
I don't necessarily have anything that I feel needs to be changed. You know, it's under student agency and voice, and it is all focused on students. But it does highlight to me that, you know, none of our categories include family and family support. So I have to think about that one. I don't know that that would be the right place to put it, but, you know, none of our 4 beliefs there mention the value of the family.
All right, I'm gonna move to the last one here. Appreciate that. All right, respect and support for all. Relationships are key to student growth. Each person is valuable. Authentic education requires cultivation of trust, communication, and acknowledgement of our barriers met with courage and action to support all learners' growth.
On the surface, I don't have anything that pops to mind, but I think that's one I'm going to, you know, think on and just like Carrie chose the word ruminate on this one too.
Definitely send me an email.
Yeah, for me, I look at it, I think we're missing something between barriers and met. I'm thinking, okay, what are we trying to communicate there?
I look at
one of the themes is respect. I will just let you know, respect came through the surveys, and students, there was no shortage of issues around respect.
Well, I can understand. So an acknowledgement of our barriers, pause, met with courage and action to support all learners' growth. When it's run together there, that's what's causing me the disconnect. That's all. Other than that, I think it looks good.
I would agree. Going back to Sandy's comment about family, there wasn't one of these, and I don't have all of them right in front of me because I'm just looking at this computer screen. Under community, wouldn't that be support by any of those factors? Was community one of the first ones that we were looking at?
Yes, it would go underneath the community outreach, would be with families, parents and guardians.
Yeah, whatever is comprised of your community. For this, yeah, I we've had lots of presentations and things are becoming a little bit of a word salad for me. So I will email if I have, I'll take a better look at it. At this point, I don't have any changes.
And so like Director Tarzal was mentioning and others, like if there's something that, is this the right sediment is the key thing. And then how do you want it to read, like the wordsmithing, there's gonna be more touches to this. And it will come to you again, so just know that you'll have another chance at this. But the key things here is what guides us, and so we really want to take these and they become norms for staff. Because they need to guide, if this we're saying are our beliefs, then how do we norm some
Yes.
of those
and
things because they're just words on a paper if they're not something that guides our actions every day, which is one of the problematic things with strategic plans.
Well, definitely the feedback from the students that, we saw in the presentation too, is that, they were saying directly from their feedback that when they have a good relationship with a teacher, they want to be in school. Relationships are definitely key. If they have a teacher that they connect with and engage with, whether it's through humor or what they're teaching or whatever it is, they have a better educational experience. So the sentiment of all of this definitely resonates with me.
I really like the respect and support for all. And as I read the rest of it, I get a little bit lost in all the words. And I don't want to say it's good, bad, or otherwise. I think that on this one, less might be more. But that's my opinion.
If I believe I'm hearing correctly, Director Best was kind of saying the thing. He kind of got lost at the end where it just started to combine too many, I think, different emphasis within it. Like that last sentence is a long sentence. And so we can work on that. So I have that. I take that. I'll package these things. I've got your comments here. I'll move those. Again, if you have other thoughts, read through them. You have it in your board packet. You can go ahead and just email me. We are meeting next Wednesday, so you have a week. If you could get those a little earlier, that'd be helpful because we are going to prepare for the steering committee. So maybe by the end of the weekend, if you could. All right, next, but don't lose the excitement, folks. Priority areas. This is a little. I'm more excited about belief statements. Can be a little bit of a tough thing, a little weighty, but the priority areas are super exciting. I was out at Shelton High School this afternoon talking with the staff. I saw a lot of heads nodding. A lot of people understood why we're having these 4 particular areas, and there's no secret. It really is. Somewhere, and you've seen that too in just the state of the district presentation that I've given you, you can really clearly understand why we have these. It's either something drawn out because it's work that we've been doing over multiple years, or due to recent information and data indicates that this is an area that we have to address. I have never done a strategic plan and worked with somewhere where it's laser focused and it's consistent across different stakeholder groups of why we're doing this work. And so I'll jump right into it for you. So high quality literacy instruction. So we have a shared challenge. Like I said, only 36% of our 3rd graders are meeting state standard in reading, with 0 of our EL language students meeting reading. I'm out at Shelton High School. I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter what you're teaching at the high school, what content course, you need students to be reading at or above grade level and writing also at or above grade level. Those are no secrets. The great news is we have an opportunity. We can shift the culture and focus our schools to love reading and writing and all the joy it brings to life. So doesn't matter what your trajectory is, where you want to go. If you're reading a technical manual, I don't know, I'm sure some of you have read you got to have real reading and comprehension skills to read some of those manuals. And so that does not shift. We know, doesn't mean you have to have all of that to go to college, but we know that you start to close opportunities for students if they aren't. So through 2 primary approaches, we would have, high quality literacy instruction, which I won't get into all the technical things around that, but does mean that we do have to make sure that we are teaching what is called a balanced literacy approach, making sure that we have the pieces where you're doing, not only just vocabulary, we think about phonics instruction or phonemic awareness, and then you think about comprehension and fluency. Those are your major pieces. We want to make sure that we're instructing that all the way pre-K through when students leave the Shelton School District. How we do that does need to be shifting. And we need way more books. We need to get kids to love reading, and we need to have more publishing parties where kids are really posting their writing and being really proud of it, telling their own story, seeing how narrative pieces are different than informational, genres, authors, literacy circles, things that are really missing. Right now, we have literally thick anthologies that are not engaging for our students. They don't speak to them, they're not engaging, they don't have choice. That's why we have that number. College and career readiness. Our high school students are asking for more help as they transition to high school. We have a higher rates of D's and F grades and incidences in discipline at 9th grade. As I told you, transitions are tough. A lot of kids coming in. They want to have the rigor at our high schools, but they got to have the prerequisite skills. They also got to build the relationships. So we can, with our own opportunities, to build the foundational pathways. It's amazing that we have our academies. So how can we fine-tune those and really create a cohesiveness across our 3 high schools so that students have those experiences afforded to them? So whether they're coming from another district or OBJH, what are we doing for them? We also have other transitions, whether you're coming from preschool to elementary, elementary to middle, middle to junior high, and junior high to high school. That's a lot. Again, I was saying that earlier. We just want to make sure that we're thinking about that, and right off the bat, our high school principals have been on top of this. And so you'll see a little bit about how we're already planning for the next school year on this, and also literacy instruction. Human capital approach. Staff are customarily hired in the summer and then provided small amounts of support in their novice years. Folks, teaching is tough. Being a school leader is tough. We're celebrating counselors. That is a tough job. And so coming in, we want to make sure that we are doing a couple key things. One is that we are actually recruiting and hiring based on those belief statements that you were just working on. They should guide the kind of people that we're looking for, and our questions should, and our performance tasks and our hiring process should lead us to help screen through an applicants that look like they can match those belief statements. Then we can't just hire them in the summer. We need to hire earlier. We're doing that this year, but we also need to make sure that we are providing a better orientation and a better sense of mentoring for their first couple of years on the job. So we would want to build out that process and supports for folks as a part of this particular priority area. Last, safe and welcoming environments. I can hear you stressing some of these comments to some of our principals this evening in their presentations of their school improvement plans. This is an area that actually the district has invested in. It's actually done some good job. It's got some foundational pieces, but we have a ways to go. So we definitely know that we need to increase our abilities so that in every single classroom across all of our schools, that we're building just the kind of safe and welcoming environment where students truly feel heard, feeling respected, and they can take control of their own educational journey to just be an equal participant, not always necessarily the decision maker. So our opportunity here is to foster, lifelong friendships and joyful, memorable experiences, really turning the tide, as I like to say it, instead of problematic behaviors, someone's being disruptive, any forms of aggression actually turns itself, and you can hear that in some of the examples we heard this evening, is actually taking it and turning it on its head. Sure, maybe Director Wielander, I hear you, and stuff like that. Things like athletics, things like the ASB clubs, things like in your class that you are going to be a scout and watch other students as they're participating, noticing who is following not only your expectations, but could be following the virtues and values for your school. Reward systems, things that really elevate. I can't tell you how many high schoolers told me, I remember all those celebrations. Yeah, I remember those too. They're going all the way back to elementary years. You just got to do more of it. Believe it or not, the kids love it. It's a good first start. It's not always necessarily an intrinsic value, but most certainly builds us towards those things when students start to take those things on, the ownership, and then they're ultimately exceptional leadership. I heard that from the business community. So this is an area that does bring me obviously a lot of excitement. I would not be remiss if I did not mention that we do have a tremendous amount of students where English is not the primary language in their household, and that they are asking for better cultural and linguistic supports for those families and students. And so we are already off on our way on that journey as we speak. So, all right, Wyeth, we've had a long evening. Where is this leading? And I do have to get to this point because it's really critical that we hear from you this evening. So those are a lot of pieces. There's a lot of things underneath each of those four priority areas, and you have to do them over a 5-year period. But we're not going to be able to do them all. So what are the right things with the right reasons, the right time? It's called essentialism. And so we need to do them together. That's one of the things that coming into this district, we kind of had every year like a new initiative, but they haven't necessarily been tied to other initiatives year in, year out. And schools have kind of gone in their own direction. We need to pull it together. Hopefully you can see that just in these school improvement plans about how well they are aligned. That was by design. So we do need to look at prioritization. Some of those steps will have broad impact. Some are more targeted. Some things are way easier in implementation. Some things on the left will be more difficult. We've already worked as a district leadership team, taking the input, the things that we know and how to live things, leading in the work. And so this is part of the activities that we did for a 5-hour work session about 3 weeks ago, as we were thinking about college and career readiness and literacy. So you can see that some of the steps that we were looking at, some are easier, some are harder, some are more broad, and some are more targeted. So that led us to, all right, we're already looking at the next school year. What could we lift that would cause us to have some of the greatest impact? Obviously, the more complex the lift is, the less you can do on the number of strategies or initiatives that you can do. So these next, so that would again be planned over the course of 5 years under those 4 areas. We have a lot more work to go. It's iterative. It's not going to just land because we have a plan. We have to constantly be assessing, adjusting as part of our continuous improvement. But with that, there are 2 primary areas that would need to be part of a nod from the board. I understand there's multiple process. Not only we have the sense of a strategic plan that we're looking to put together and get in front of you, but we also have our budget. And so just like any other school district, you go through your steps to say, hey, what areas do you want to invest in? Because we're doing that information now when the budget ultimately gets approved in August. These are 2 primary investments that we are looking to make for the next school year as we have designed it and based on the input from the community and also just readiness for the Shelton School District. The first one really puts books, classroom libraries, book selection, a wide variety of books at different reading levels across our grade levels. So we're talking about this would be a K through 6 initiative. So we're talking about classroom libraries and enhancement of book rooms. This would be a lot of training involved. We purposely broke that out to have you see what the actions we would need to do this spring. We have some things for the summer, and then we have for this next fiscal cycle, because some things will have to get caught in this year's budget. So classroom libraries, trainings, and then enhanced staff, probably maybe a couple additional FTE that specifically support literacy instruction across, again, the 4 schools, so the 3 elementaries plus OMS. College and career readiness, that initiative right at the bat, working with the principals, and they're working with their teams. They really want to work on that orientation. Like I said, they've already gone out to 8th graders, introduced themselves, gave them some information about the program, but they're looking at doing like a full 3-day orientation and kickoff with students at each of the high schools. So incoming freshmen, building relationships, it's student-led. And so what a great opportunity for students to come in. It does require a lot of planning, a lot of staff, obviously, when you have that number of students, but that can be great. Algebra, we're going to have a number of students. I know you've seen some of the preliminary data on this. Algebra is key. Doesn't matter what area you're going into, you do need to have algebra and pass that. It's been a historical problem for the Shelton School District for getting kids to be able to have just the skills that are required underneath your algebra class. So we want to offer summer algebra. It would be for students for all 3 high schools. It would be housed at SHS, targeting about 60 students. So that planning, and then summer reading. So we would have a collection of books out there at different reading levels, and then having all the incoming freshmen having at least a reading. And then we would have a celebration recognition for those who completed their assigned book and some of the activities that would be attached to the book that they chose. So again, you can see the breakouts. I will come back to this slide, but I want to show you one more slide, which is what it looks like currently for the budget. Currently, we have our state and federal programmatic dollars. So your title, your LAP, special education, EL. This is where that bulk of the money comes from. It's mostly in staffing. As you can see, we have some non-staffing. That's not unusual. And then we would have some designated dollars for the strategic plan. Some of those are new dollars underneath ESSER. Some of those dollars are repurposing because we're saying we're going to go laser-like focus and prioritize our money. Basic ed, 19 million for staffing, our non-staffing cost, and then $800,000 underneath the strategic plan. Kind of incredible when you start to think about how small basic ed is versus state and federal programs, but that is the reality that we live in here in the Shelton School District. So I just wanted to come through. I'll go back to the other slide, or I can come toggle, but I just wanted to hear some thoughts and comments or any questions.
Board members, you are welcome to jump in with any questions.
Okay, I'll jump first. The numbers for the priorities and budget on one page, and the programs where the money is on the second page aren't intended to add up to each other. Okay. All righty.
That's correct, because this is like initial right here. Later conversations this spring, we would talk about the other things, but these are 2 big lists that schools need to get planning on. That's why. It would be part of those monies, but not just exclusive.
Right. Those, the things that are broken out on the calendar, the priorities and budget, spring, summer, the next school year, primarily, most of those are going to end up being staffing, correct?
Some of it is staffing. In this particular case, we're actually buying quite a lot of this money on the classroom libraries is the bulk of the money on the top one. The one on the bottom is almost all staff time.
Okay.
Because there's planning and
The one on the bottom saying
contract.
enhanced staffing, or the one on the bottom in the next initiative?
So yeah, the top one here where you have high quality literacy instruction, a lot of that money is for books. The one on the bottom for college and career readiness is almost all staffing time. It's for planning and direct instruction.
Can I jump in with a question too? So the books is primarily for the elementary schools, you said, and possibly OMS.
Mm-hmm.
And does that take into account what they currently have in their libraries that are there? Has there been like I'm guessing there's been an assessment of the books and the needs to come up with these numbers?
Almost every classroom is comprised, the books are in there are literally the books that staff have probably purchased with their own monies. And there is a whole system to this, but they're not leveled, students aren't leveled, and there's clearly not enough books, and many of them are way outdated.
Okay, and that's what I was wondering, because I do know that I know from many staff members that I've met over the years, they do purchase a lot of their own books and loan them out to students. And, you know, sometimes they get those back, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're donated books. I just want you, if there is a system to this, that makes more sense.
If you have readers really reading, depending on what grade level you're talking about, like kindergarten, kids can go through 10 books in a sitting. And you know, kids have to bring home books, then there's book loss. It adds up. Yeah, it's real.
What about the transition into, more ebooks rather than hard copy books? Or is that still not feasible at those grade levels?
That's something that's usually for older students. A lot of times that technology for the ebooks, and when they have to go home, it's really hard to manage the devices, considering the number of Chromebooks that we never got back given the pandemic. For the literacy instruction, tells me that we're just not quite ready for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Superintendent
Please.
Marilyn Ward. I have a question on the other page where it states state and federal programs. Is there somewhere where we can see exactly where this money is going, like what the programs are on the
We will have a work session on that.
Okay.
That's just part of the cadence of school boards. So we'll be having multiple conversations on, what these dollars end up going towards.
Okay.
They're pretty easy breakouts. And so Brenda will be leading that.
Okay.
Hey,
thank
Brenda.
you.
So given what we've talked about thus far on the whole strategic plan and the basic understanding that if you can't read, you can't go anywhere. And my own personal big focus is, the preparation for post-secondary life. I'm certainly in support of these two projects taken off, sooner than later. As long as the numbers work and the money's there. I ask that question all the time. But no, I like it. And if we can get going on these two things specifically before we even have a finalized strategic plan, I'm all about it.
Yeah, we recognize that the human capital one probably is not going to be a very expensive endeavor. It's really more some mentoring. It's really about our efforts and how we coordinate things. That one's not, that priority itself over the life of itself for 5 years is not going to be expensive comparatively to literacy instruction and college career readiness. And then safe and welcoming does have some elements to it. Some things that we can switch internally, but I think, we're just going to have to work with the steering committee and the planning teams to make sure that we're landing the right things in the right sequence. And we'll put the numbers will always be attached to it, for sure. I mean, yes.
I appreciate the focus on the reading aspects. It is so critical to everything else. We've been participating in a program here for the last couple of years called Raising a Reader, where we actually give bags of books to children. They sign out, take home, come back, swap books, but then they get to school, they don't have the same level of books and they drop off, so we've been investing our time and resources, and I think the two will actually leverage each other, but right now it's sort of missing that step.
Director Best, you're 100% spot on exactly what we're trying to do. Really trying to get kids books. They got to go home. It broke my heart when I asked a high school group of 30 kids, I go, how many have a book? One. So it's exciting. Like I said, it's our opportunity. And I think it's exciting, and I really appreciate the board this evening recognizing, there are areas that are lifting off on the work we've been doing. It's just, it's just time to narrow down. And, summer programming, I mean, you're going to have to come join me to come hand out books. So just get ready for the opportunity for that. So the next steps, continue to staff focus groups. We have a work session coming up at the very end of February. We have more designs for planning teams and steering teams. And then we also have the virtual meeting, some virtual meetings in March to finally get the draft. We'll get that to you. I'm hoping for the March 22nd board meeting, but it may have to be the one in April, I believe, 11th or 12th. I can't remember. So we'll see about that. And then we have already working on publication and communication planning, so that at the end, we're parallel planning these things just because of the timelines and the need to already prepare for the next school year, and frankly, just this summer.
Hi, this is Marty.
All right. So any other further questions or comments?
Marty, I think you're off mute.
All right, so I'll walk out. I'm actually
Sorry about that. Didn't want to catch his conversation for our board meeting. I don't have any questions at this time. I really appreciate you going through each part of that. And I look forward to just continuing to build on this and to continue to work through things. I know we've got a study session coming up on it. I appreciate just having you bring the board through each part of this process and show us what each one of the focus groups and the steering committee has been going through.
Yeah, and I recognize it's a lot of information in one evening. I'm sorry, but it's just, it's the culmination of all the things that happened for us. Like I said, if you have questions, reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through anything, answer questions, go over the presentation again, anything to help you, understand exactly what it did. It is a very complex process, and I just don't want you to be. I want to make sure that you're abreast of everything that's happening.
Well, and I think that we all appreciate the hard work that you all have been putting into this and the long hours of going through all of it. I know that it has been a lengthy presentation tonight, but it is a lot of information, and it's a critical step to getting things in place for furthering our students in the school district. So thank you for all of that. And if any of us have any questions, like the superintendent said, we can reach out and call him. We can email him with those questions at any time. This is an ongoing process. So we will go to the final item in reports and recognitions, which is 5.06, which is the November and December 2021 budget status reports with Brenda.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm pleased to say I finally have 2 months together here. We've worked through a lot of our issues with account code crosswalks and stuff. A couple little minor ones left, but we're in a good place. So I have November and December budget status for all funds, and I will just go ahead and read off the December instead of doing 2 months, because that's where we are on this presentation. So I just want to say a couple things about general fund. You'll see November balance is down, and that is because we receive apportionment statements from Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And a few years ago, they changed our whole apportionment system, and November is only a 5% apportionment month. So we dip way into fund balance on that month. Most months are 9%, but they did, for lack of better term, rob Peter to pay Paul, because their fiscal year starts July 1. So they shifted our biggest payments to July and August for us. So we have to use our money until getting to July and August, which are 12.5% and 10% months. So that's what you'll see throughout this. But so with December, we landed with $1,007,813.70. Capital Project Fund has money coming in and out right now with the non-high payments from the districts, and then finishing up the Met Academy. So in December, we landed with $278,670.15. Debt service fund had a little bit of a change. The county used to pull our bond payments on December 1st, and this year they came out on November 30th. So November is down a little bit. So December, we ended up with $436,953.57. Associated student body is at, for December, $487,316.65. Transportation vehicle fund is just collecting a little bit of interest right now. So December ended with $247,769.70. And then we have the private purpose trust fund that has our 3 scholarship funds in it. And that totals $236,045.27. So that is where we ended December. Are there any questions?
I'm seeing heads nodding no, but if anybody does have a question, feel free to jump in. Brenda, your reports are always so clear and we appreciate you running through them. I'm glad you had both months.
Thank you. I am too.
See that workout. So thank you very much for the budget status reports for both November and December. So we will move on to the consent agenda. And as you can see, there's a number of items that are our typical consent agenda items with different warrants and yes, everything that's typical there. So if anybody has a question, they can bring that up, or if there's a motion to pass the consent agenda, or please feel free to make a motion for that.
I move to pass the consent agenda.
And I will second that.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to pass the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. Now we do have one item under discussion and action items, and that is 7.01. It's the proposed new policy 3424, opioid related overdose reversal. And this is the second reading of that. Superintendent Jesse, did you have anything else to add about this?
Yes, thank you, Board President Davidson. Only thing I would add about that is I've been working with Director Wieslander, and so on the policy itself, if you can, for other board directors or anybody following along, we've updated the posting for the this particular policy. The last full body paragraph, which is the first paragraph on page 2, we were able to strike some language to not just restrain the staff that are out of the health care clinic. It's really other staff. They may be housed in other places. It's really open, as it's stated also in policy procedure. You know, it could be even a field trip or other access, and including contracted employees. So just felt kind of limiting to say, you know, that these particular staff are located at the healthcare clinic, when in all reality, that is not the case. So that we work together to, again, strike those 5 words as designated. So other than that, just moving it for hopefully approval this evening.
I think I'm going to jump in here real quick. I see, I think that was a good catch and a good recommendation to remove those 5 words, but I also see those words listed on page 1 in the 3rd bullet point. So we may want to remove them there as well for consistency's sake.
Can I speak to that, Mr. Jesse?
Please.
Okay. So the intent of the ones up above is who is legally allowed to give that opioid reversal medication, not the location of it. And so that's what that language actually means in the RCWs. It's specific to the RCW language.
Ms. Lefrener?
Yes.
Does that, the RCW on that, is that specific to the school grounds? when I went back through and read the RCW, basically it says the best I was able to find is you're all covered under the Good Samaritan Act. And as long as you've had cursory training on how and when to give naloxone, you would be covered as long as you gave it in good faith and didn't fill it their ear or anything with it. And so, that was my question on the RCW for you.
Yeah, correct. So in paragraph 3, it is who is designated by the district. So it's either the health clerks, the school nurse, or whoever the school nurse trains. So just Joe Blow can't just go grab it and give it to someone. It has to be someone who's been trained. But then paragraph 5 is the locations, and that's where it specifies field trips, school grounds. It's all within the 2 different things, but one is talking about who and the other's talking about locations.
Yeah. I was just asking about the RCW. I agree with everything else.
Yeah, the RCW does specify those, exactly.
Does that clear that up for you, Sandy? Does that make sense?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the policy as written with the correction, as unfortunate as that we need it.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the proposed new policy 3424 with the correction. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Hearing none, policy 3424 has passed.
Thank you.
And now we move into our second opportunity for community comments. At this time, I haven't seen anybody new dial in, but if there is anyone who has, you are welcome to, again, is it *6 to unmute and *9 to raise your hand?
Raise your hand for 6. You unmute yourself.
Okay, great. So we'll pause for just a moment to see if there is anyone who would like to make a community comment. And I am not seeing any at this time, so we will move into board member comments. And tonight, Marty, you are at the top of my list if you would like to kick us off with some board member comments.
Sure, thank you. I just want to express my appreciation for all the work they've done on the strategic plan and to get us to this point. It's when we first had the initial meeting a few months back and I saw the timelines, I'm thinking this is a very ambitious project. I had to find the right word there. But I am also happy that, the first thing that I focus on, as I showed this evening, is I'm having a lot of comments, a lot of concerns raised to me about safety and the violence in the schools. And I'm, as I've shared with Mr. Jesse, it's been going on since I was in school, a few weeks ago. It's been, but back then we didn't have to worry about the things we have to worry about now. And so it's a grave concern when children and staff are afraid to go to school. And that in itself defeats the learning opportunities. So I know that we've built that in there, and I just appreciate the work that we're doing. And I also encourage us to communicate the good things we are doing so that the parents and the families understand that we do hear what's going on, we are taking actions, and that we're doing the best we can with the resources to mitigate and to eliminate the violence to the best of our ability. So I just want to thank you for the work you are doing. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Director Best. Director Welander, you are next up in the line.
I kind of wanted to echo Marty on the strategic plan part of it. That all looked great. I'm pleased that I haven't had to fight about anything. It goes right along with, the things that people have asked me to make sure that was, put forward as far as, planning for the future and those sorts of things. It's been super busy and everybody's gotten a ton done. The school improvement plans have all looked great. Brenda's got her budget going, rock solid. We're hiring teachers, sooner in the year than we ever have in the past. I'm super proud to be part of the board right now, even though really in these meetings, I just sit and watch everybody else work. And you've all done a tremendous job, and thank you very much. There's one little guy out there, and he's not to make fun of his size, but if you spend any time up at the high school around the athletic stuff, is there any way we can send Scott Chamberlain a flower or something? If you're up at sports and you see how well they're running and everything is going so smoothly, he ran the district wrestling for the boys this week. It was hosted here. Boy, that guy is everywhere and he's there 24/7. And I don't think we give him enough credit. And to tag on to that, I'm still waiting for my report to see how well people in athletics and band and drama and all those other after school sports are doing on their grades compared to people that aren't. Would love to see that at some point. Otherwise, thank you for all the good work, guys. Everything looks great.
All right. Thank you, Director Wielander. Director Ward, would you like to give your board comments tonight?
Yes, I would just like to say it's very impressive, the work that's been done on the strategic plan, and it's very interesting, and I'm looking forward to working on it more. Also, I would like to say that I remember about a couple meetings back, it was mentioned about a play, and I did see that play is going to be this February 11th at 6:30 at the high school. So I'm really looking forward to going to that. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to my first basketball game. Am I cutting out?
We can hear you, but your screen may have frozen.
Okay, we got.
Yes, now you cut out. No.
Yeah.
I think we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what you heard. I'm going to the basketball game tomorrow night. That was my last statement. So.
Yes, we got that. So thank you for going in.
I got a new router. I thought that would help it, but I'll have to call Comcast and see what's up.
You were doing so good for most of the time. So that's good. Director Tarswell, you are up next.
Hi there. I had hoped to have, well, first off, I want to thank staff and everybody for all the presentations. There was a lot there tonight and everybody worked really hard, appreciated the information. I had hoped to have a legislative update for everyone, but the meeting's running a little bit long. I'll just suffice it to say that there was an important cutoff date on Thursday and another one yesterday. And so things will start to happen more definitively here coming forward. Through the years, WASDA has developed various tracking tools for watching the legislative bills that are on the standing proposals. And they keep refining it, and it has really become a very nicely organized tool. Quite a manageable list comes out on Fridays, so we'll find out more for the rest of the week. But, on a bright spot, I can tell you that the Senate Bill 5615, declaring pickleball to be the official Washington sport, passed. That was not on the WASDA list, but I thought that was just a good little tidbit. And I'll keep it short because I know we're running late.
All right. Thank you, Director Tarswell. We appreciate that and hearing about pickleball, since that is often played in PE classes here or in the streets. So I'm going to keep my comments short too. Everyone's touched on pretty much everything. I really appreciate the school improvement plans and the time that the principals and vice principals are putting into that. Thank you again very much to our school counselors. You are just very much needed, and we're, as a community, thankful for the work that you are doing with our students in our schools and the families that you are helping with them. So just thank you very much for all of that. Thank you, Superintendent, for the strategic plan presentation. That is a lot of work that you and the district office staff and all of these groups are working on. I really appreciate just seeing all of the feedback and the outreach that's going into this, because it really is going to, in order to resonate with our community and our school district community, we need to be listening to all of the aspects of that. So thank you all for the hard work on that. And then finally, just thank you very much to our student representatives. Thank you for coming to these meetings and sticking with us. Your voice is very important, and we really appreciate hearing your reports at the beginning of this, and just any other comments that you have. And the superintendent did forward me the student rep policy. I just have not had a chance myself with my busy work schedule to take a look at it, but I have promised to review that, and we'll continue to refine that and work on that updated policy as well. But for now, I'll just wish everybody a happy Valentine's weekend, since that's coming up next Monday. Enjoy the play, enjoy the basketball games. Good luck to all of our sports and activities that are going on. Anyone that's in competition right now, I know our dance team is in competition. We've got wrestlers that are moving on to regionals and then state. It's really exciting for all of our student athletes and clubs that have some things going on. So after that, we do not have an executive session tonight. There's no reason for that. I guess I will also say there will be that WASDA call on Thursday at noon. I'm unable to attend this week because I have a work commitment that prevents me from doing that. So if anybody else wants to listen to that, they can. I do appreciate Sandy mentioning that they do update on Fridays on the WASDA page, any legislative updates. So that's always important to, if you're interested, to take a look at their website to see. So after that, all we have left is if somebody would like to move to adjourn this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, it has been moved and seconded and hand motioned for a second.
Yeah.
So all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. All right, hearing none, thank you all for sticking with us through a long meeting this evening to go over this important stuff. And thank you, board members, again, for your time and your commitment to the community. We appreciate it. And have a good night.
Night.
Have a good night, you guys.